Hey guys, David Robinson here with the Apartment Investing Journey. We have a great guest joining us today. I'm really excited to share his story with you and his journey into the apartment investing world. Matt DeBoth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. A little bit about Matt before we get started here. Matt is a Marine Corps veteran who served from 2003 to 2011 as Force Recon Marine, deploying to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Africa. During his last combat deployment, Matt purchased a 20-unit apartment complex and house hacked it upon his exit from the service. He currently invests in the Midwest and owns a portfolio of 142 units. Since 2011, he has flipped 25 plus rental units, as well as BRRRRed, buy, renovate, refinance, repeat, multi-million-dollar apartment buildings, all while using traditional funding from banks. Recently, Matt started a full rehab on a 48-unit apartment building in Des Moines, Iowa. Additionally, he sold his laundromat and started repositioning his portfolio to hold mid to large sized apartment buildings. Working as the general contractor and asset manager for his portfolio, Matt has found his expertise lies in value-add appreciation and creative financing. He currently hosts a local real estate meetup. Where's that located, Matt?
In Ottumwa, Iowa.
Okay, great. And he uses his free time to help educate others on real estate investing, being a part-time, being part of multiple mastermind groups, reading investment books, and being a podcast junkie. Matt views himself as a lifelong student, and he lives in Iowa with his wife, 3 kids, and 2 German Shepherds. That's the military dog for you right there.
Yep.
Well, before we go any further, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I always like to just back up and this gives us quite a bit of information about you, but I want to hear the whole journey. And so if you don't mind, let's sort of start from when you were back in the military and starting to think about this idea of real estate investing.
Yeah, so I was on my last deployment in Afghanistan. I knew I was getting out of the Marine Corps. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I had just kept reading investment books for probably the year prior to this. Obviously, it started with all Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and just spewed into every Robert Kiyosaki book I could find, every stock investing book, real estate book. Eventually, I just decided I need to jump into real estate and build my parachute on the way down. So I was on the MLS, contacted a realtor about a 20-unit apartment building that I knew I could not afford. She put me in contact with the seller, and him and I just started emailing back and forth. He was interested in doing a seller finance. It was the bottom of the market. He was in his late 60s, wanting just to get out of the real estate market and collect a passive income check. So I ended up doing a deal with him, buying it on contract from him. Got out of the Marine Corps at the August of 11, moved into it, did basically a house hack job, did all the property management, the maintenance, everything. Paid him off about 1.5 years with traditional financing from a bank because the market had went up. I'd forced a ton of appreciation in the place. After I refinanced that with a bank, I just went full throttle and started flipping houses. And I knew I wanted to keep buying more and more apartment complexes, but I didn't have the money, and it was harder and harder to find seller financing. So I thought the next best thing was just to start flipping houses and building up my reserve. So that's what I did for the next about 4 years, is just flip houses and buy single family duplexes and a couple fourplexes. And then I bought a 17 unit in 2017. Repositioned that, got a bunch of good renters in there, cleaned the place up. Then in 2018, I bought a 22 unit. Nobody wanted that place. They thought it was garbage. And I paid $725 for it, cleaned all the bad people out of it, raised rents, cleaned that up. And basically I BRRRRed that into a 15 unit, which I BRRRRed into a 48 unit, and as of today I've got another 48 under contract, so I'm hoping that goes well.
Well, man, you haven't messed around since you got out of the Marines, so you've gotten after it. I want to back up and talk a little bit more about the mindset that you developed in preparation for exiting the military. So you're reading all these books, and you came across Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you're reading all these books. But what intrigues me is that you went straight to a fairly large apartment building right off the bat. Help me to understand, what was the mindset? Because a lot of people who are starting to think about getting into the real estate space or real estate investing generally are starting to think about, oh, maybe one single family home, or maybe a duplex, or maybe even the biggest, a fourplex. So that's where a lot of people start to think. And you went straight for a 20-unit apartment building. So maybe help us add some context around what was going on in your mind to take that path.
So I knew I didn't want a single family house because I needed cash flow because I was getting out of the Marine Corps. I didn't have a job waiting for me. I didn't want to go back to school. And I couldn't find any decent duplexes, triplexes, or so forth to move into. So I thought, well, I'm just going to look into the bigger stuff and see what it is. I know I can't afford it, so I'm just going to look into it, just to, crunch the numbers and see if it's something that I could actually pull off. And I knew I couldn't go into the banks. I didn't have it. I didn't have the down payment. I didn't have the experience or any of the connections to get traditional financing. But luckily, I just kept putting my name out there and shooting emails to different realtors. This one particular realtor knew that the seller wanted to do seller financing, and that's how it all started. Was he basically got my foot in the door by selling it to me on contract. It cash flowed well. I did do a lot of work to the place. I was living on site. I was doing all the managing. So he didn't really have much risk because he had got a substantial down payment, and I was on site to take care of any problems that should arise from it.
What was the down payment that you had to put down to get that deal?
$50,000.
Okay.
And I did not have 50 grand. So I had a little bit of a savings being deployed. So I used that. I took a cash advance out on my credit card, and then I borrowed money from peer-to-peer lending. And even with all those payments from a cash advance and peer-to-peer lending, the cash flow from this property still paid all those payments, paid the guy I was buying it from on contract, taxes, insurance, utilities, and everything. Of course, I had to adjust for the property management because I was a property manager, so I really couldn't pay myself, but it paid all the bills and it did great. And I knew I had a contract with him that I had to pay him for at least a year and a half. So I knew I could pay him for 18 months on what that place was cash flowing.
That is so interesting. And would you say that your military experience helped you in having the confidence to sort of go into an area that you didn't have any experience, and to just figure your way through it? Do you feel like that played a role in it?
Yeah, I think it did. I think it helped a lot to go into a situation that I was unfamiliar with. But on the other hand, I think I was just too dumb to realize that I was risking everything because I didn't have anything going for me. So I thought, I'm either going to risk it all now at 27 years old and fall flat on my face, or I'm going to succeed. And I obviously, doing the numbers and crunching it, I knew I had statistically a very, very good chance of succeeding on it. So that's why I basically put everything on red and just spun the wheel and went for it.
I like it. And now obviously you're married and you have a few kids. You have three kids. At the time, did you have a family?
No, I was just with my girlfriend, my now wife.
Okay.
It was just us, and she was working a part-time job, and all I was doing was just playing property manager, maintenance man.
Cool. And you were living in the building, correct? You house hacked this thing.
Yep, I was living in the absolute worst apartment out of all 20.
Man, what a cool story to get yourself started. I am also curious about the motivation of the seller. What was it that caused him to really want to work with someone who, to seller finance the deal?
So the property was in Iowa, but he was living in North Carolina, and this was his last property in Iowa. He had MS really bad, was a disabled Navy vet, just wanted to sell everything and just live out the final few days with his wife, not worrying about tenants and handymen and all the books and stuff. And I think he just saw me as somebody that just wanted to get into the game, and he gave me a break, and it helped a lot.
Yeah. So why wouldn't he have just chose to just sell it outright?
He had tried to. It was listed on the MLS, but because the market was pretty bad in that time, not too many people were interested in it. And I don't know. I think that was the biggest reason is he had it listed for 2 years. No one had bought it. The market was bad, and he was just ready to pass on the knowledge. And, he was
Cool.
at the top of his investing game. So once he got to the top of the mountain, he just threw the rope down to help out the next guy. And I was the guy to grab on and start climbing.
That's pretty cool. That's a great story. So that got you into the game, and man, well, what a start, right? You're starting off with a 20-unit seller finance deal, and ended up being a really good deal for you. Do you still own that today, or did you end up selling that?
No, I still own it.
Good
I've got a little bit of sentimental value to that, so I don't know if I'm going to sell it or
I
hold
can
on
imagine.
to it.
I can imagine. Cool. All right, and then so you got out of the military. You lived in that building. You got it all fixed up. You managed the property yourself, and then really couldn't really find any other deals, right? I mean, the market was at a different place. So you said that you went about four years without acquiring anything else, but you did a bunch of fix and flip.
Yeah, I went 4 years without getting any large multifamily. I was just sticking to single family homes and 2, 3, 4 units. So that's basically all I did. Was I didn't even think about large apartment buildings. I just kept my nose down and kept pushing forward on flips and buying single family homes, and it built up my portfolio pretty well. And I mean, at the time you could throw a dart at the MLS and hit a good foreclosure property, and as long as you weren't dumb about it and over improved it, you'd make money off it. So now, that was back a few years ago. I mean, I was buying houses for 15, 20 grand, putting 5 or 10 into it, and I could rent them out for $700 a month. So I was doing great on that. And a lot of those houses I put on shorter notes, 8, 10, 12-year notes. So they're, I'm paying them down quite a bit, and I've got a ton of equity in them. So here, now that the market's at the top, I think I might start selling off my smaller houses and just concentrate on multifamily.
And that's an interesting, you bring that up because that's something that I've been having a lot of dialogue with other single family rental property owners right now, is does it make sense to reposition the equity that they currently have in their single family rental portfolio and move that into maybe more commercial multifamily that could handle a down market a little bit better than the single family. Single families are great during the up market because, well, at least in our market here, you capture more appreciation, but I'm not sure. I think there's a pretty good argument to be had about repositioning that equity into commercial multifamily versus single family. Is that sort of your mentality around it?
Yeah, I mean, I bought low, and now that it's as high as it is, I think I've probably squeezed all the juice I can out of it for as far as equity and appreciation. And I think here shortly, I'm just going to start selling them off one by one and either 1031 them into something, or I don't know, see if I can sell them off as a portfolio or in big chunks.
Gotcha. And is your thought process just that you prefer to be in multifamily?
Yeah, I think it's obviously you can scale much larger in multifamily, more appreciation, more cash flow. I think single family was more of just a stepping stone to get where I'm at now. So, all my single family houses are doing great. I got a great property manager. They're all just running smoothly. So I'm not even going to poke that bear right now. As soon as I get a tenant or two that moves out, I'll start listing it and going from there.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay, cool. So you did a lot of flipping during that time, and I'm assuming that was sort of the plan, right? You used the flipping business to generate cash to then go and invest in these deals. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I was, so I only, of all my investing career, I've only put money down once for a property, and that was my very first property. And since then, I've basically been burring house after house and apartment building after apartment building. So I would buy the house, no money down from the bank, and then just use my own cash to fix it up. And then I would have so much equity into it, I would just do it to the next house and burr that into another zero money down, put my own cash into that. And a few of them I would sell on contract or sell outright. And that's how I just kept the ball rolling.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I know people will be asking that question. All right, help us to understand how you have been able to acquire this portfolio with literally only putting money down 50 grand on this 20 unit, and now it's all rolled. So maybe just give us a little bit more context about how you've been able to make that work.
So I think my specialty or my niche is basically cross-collateralizing property and forcing so much appreciation and equity in the place that I can take the 80% loan to value and take that top 20% off and have enough between that and what I owe in the place and just roll that into the next deal. So then when the next deal is purchased and I have that established and appreciated, I can refinance that one, and then the mortgages go away so they're not tied together, so I don't have a giant house of cards. In case one falls, they all fall down. So I don't over leverage myself, but instead of taking the money out as a cash out refi, I just leave the money on the paper or on the books, and then just the bank will just roll it to the next one, which helps me keep my loan down, keeps my payments down, keeps my equity high, keeps my net worth high. And the banks love it. They love the fact that I'm not, pulling out all this money to move into, buy a new car or move into the next project. They like keeping it on the book so that they know that they're in a safe place. I'm in a safe place. The cash flow is great, and it's win-win for everyone.
So just to clarify, so you will acquire a property, force the appreciation through whether it be operations or renovation, and then you will refinance. Well, not even necessarily refinance. You don't pull the money back out. You basically just go find the next deal, go to the bank and say, hey, you can use my existing property as collateral as a down payment on the new place.
Yes.
Awesome. And have you built up local banking relationships to be able to make that happen?
Yeah, I don't have no Freddie, no Fannie, no agency debt like that. It's all local credit unions, local banks, guys that I talk to on a regular basis. They know my numbers, they know my operations, they know how I run it and how I fly my business. So they're not scared of what I'm going to do in the future because they know I've got a strict set of rules that I stick to. And I'm not going to give them a property I want to buy just to scratch an itch because it's at a 6 cap and I think it would look good in my portfolio. They know I'm buying something that's going to have a ton of value that I can add to it. I'm going to increase the equity in it. I'm going to increase my net worth, my cash flow, and I'll be able to move on to another deal and another deal.
Awesome. Love it. Man, great strategy. Love what you've done. So let's move a little bit and let's talk about how you're sourcing deals. Like that's always on everybody's mind. It's like, all right, how do you find these deep value add deals that you can go in and add as much value as you have and implement this strategy?
Honestly, it's just the networking. I mean, I go to a couple real estate meetups. I've got a few real good brokers that I know. Just word of mouth. I tell people what I do, I'm very specific. I'm looking for at least a 24-unit apartment complex, mostly at least 50% 2 bedrooms. In this area, it needs to be built between this time frame. And I just keep, telling more and more people that. And I think the word of mouth gets around. And brokers is another thing. You got hungry brokers out there that they're wanting to find deals for you. So they'll bend over backwards to help you out. As long as you stick with them and help them out, they're going to scratch your back also. And I think that's another big lesson, is to stay connected with people, network. Don't try and screw people over. Don't try to cut the realtor out of the commission just because a deal doesn't work. There'll always be another deal down the road. That realtor might have 3 or 4 other pocket listings that you might be interested in.
That relationship is a lot more valuable than just that one deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So curious about the geographic location of your portfolio. Are you buying in a specific area close to you? Or are you open to going outside of your general, market? Or
right now, I'm just in Iowa, mainly the Des Moines market. I'm open-minded to going to other markets, but I've got enough in the pipeline now for probably the next 2 years between rehabbing and one under contract that I'm not really looking to get out of the market. And it's almost in my backyard. It's an hour and a half drive. So I know the market well. I know what's coming to town, what's leaving town. So I feel pretty confident in this market. So I think I'm going to probably stay here.
Okay. How far away is your furthest asset or property?
Maybe an hour and 35 minutes of drive.
Gotcha. Okay. So everything pretty close to you. That's great. Good for you. Well, cool. Well, so how have you structured for the most part these deals? Are you the sole owner on with your entire portfolio?
Yeah, I'm the only owner. I have no partners. I don't do syndications. I'm kind of greedy, so I want the whole pie. I don't want to have to manage investors, and I feel like syndication's a good model, but I don't feel it's a model for me because I would have to manage not only the property managers, but the investors and make sure everyone's getting paid. So to me, my most important asset is time. I like my time. I like to spend time with my wife and kids, my free time. So I don't want to have to put more on my plate. My big goal right now is just to keep buying assets and putting them under professional, third-party managers, and then have to manage the managers. Then eventually, hopefully have an asset manager that can just manage all that.
Cool. That's great. Love it. Well, before we dive in to your 48 unit that we're going to go into a little bit more detail on, is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't asked you that you think listeners might appreciate about your specific journey and the process that you've gone through?
Go big or go home. You don't have to start off with just one tiny little house that you think you need to house hack and BRRRR. I mean, you find the right people, you network with the right people, and you can go big and start off big.
That's cool. Great. All right. Well, let's dive in. Let's move to the Deal Dig segment where we talk about your 48 unit in Des Moines, Iowa. I don't think you have all the details right in front of you, but I'd like to maybe just start off, if you can, just give us a description of the building itself.
So this is the 48 unit apartment complex. It'd be 4 12-unit buildings, all in the same block. Distressed seller, poorly managed, just tired of being in the game. Real close to downtown, great numbers, very low expense ratio. I had a broker find the deal and bring it to me. Worked it for about 2.5, 3 months to finally get it under contract. Typical distressed seller where, there's no numbers, there's no T12. I had to call and get, average utility bills. I had to ask tenants what they were paying for rent. Nobody's under a lease. Paid 2.5 for that. Did a local community bank funded that. 0 down. I got a check at closing for security deposits and prorated rent. That's my big project now. I'm going to start flipping that here. Probably going to take me 12 months to flip all 48 units.
Wow. That's cool. So there's a lot to unpack right there. All right. So distressed seller and broker brought the deal to you. Was it on market or was it off market, sort of a pocket listing that the broker knew about?
It was an off market kind of a pocket listing. The seller didn't want to necessarily sell it unless it was somebody that was confident in buying. So when I put it under contract, I had the money go hard within, I think, 6 or 7 days. It was the middle of the week, so it would be the Friday of the next week. My money went hard, so she knew I was serious. I had already got a pre-approval from the bank. After I submitted my LOI and before I even had it under contract, I already knew 90% of the numbers. I knew what the average rents were or what I could get out of them with the condition of the property. I called the utility companies. I knew the taxes. I got an insurance quote on it. So I knew before the ink was dry that this was a solid deal and I was going to get it.
Gotcha. Okay. And you'd mentioned 2 to 3 months before you actually got it under contract. So I'm assuming that you're doing all this work without even having a contract on the table. You're digging in. Are you communicating with tenants even going that far before you even got it under contract?
I was, but with her permission. She would go into one building and just say, hey, talk to these people. They lived here for 5 years. They'll tell you what you really think of it. So she was pretty open to it. Wasn't hiding anything about it. But I knew that it was a great deal. I knew there was a ton of equity in it. And I didn't mind making all the phone calls and doing my due diligence prior to this and making my money go hard instantly or almost instantly because I knew it was just absolute great grand slam property.
Yeah. And you mentioned no money down, but you obviously got the local bank finance the deal for you. So what did you collateralize?
I had a 22-unit apartment building in the same town that I bought. Within about 6 months of buying it, I almost doubled the value on it. So I had a ton of equity in that, and I just went to a local bank. Never worked with them before. I said, this is what I've got. This is what I want to do. The numbers work great. The cash flow works great. I showed them everything. I said, I need a pre-approval letter. What can you do? And I think maybe within 2 days, they said, yeah, this is absolute great property, great deal. We'll do this 0 down, but we're going to cross collateralize and take this apartment also. So they gave me interest only for 6 months on it. And I mean, it was a win-win for everybody.
So did they take us like a second lien position on the 22 unit, or how did that work?
They paid off my first bank, and they just took a first position on that and used the equity in that from the new appraisal, and rolled that over to the 48.
Gotcha. Okay. So how much equity was that they basically captured in that 22 unit? Do you remember?
I owed 700 on it, and it appraised for 1.51.
Wow. Okay. Great, man. So just crunching some numbers in my head here then. Yeah. All right, cool. That's great. And then talk about sort of the business plan. What was the plan moving into this deal?
Basically, my plan is now is I'm getting rid of all the bad tenants, the ones that don't pay, the ones that cause problems. I'm getting rid of those. I'm going to slowly empty one full building and then just do a full gut rehab on that building, get that one leased up with new rents, move on to the next, and just do a round robin from 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth building, and I'll be done.
And that's the nice thing about having those separate buildings. You can sort of take one down at a time.
Yep.
And how the construction process, you have some experience in this space. Well, I mean, obviously you've done a lot of these type of deals over the years. Do you still get involved in that process, the rehab process, or do you contract all that out?
I contract it all out. I'm just GCing it. I'm flipping 2 of the apartments by myself, so that way I have a template to show, the contractors, this is what I want. Mirror this 47 more times. Same trim, same color, same cabinets, all that. So I am kind of involved, but as soon as I'm done with that, I'm going to basically just manage the contractors and make sure everything's going to plan. I do have third-party management on it, so they're keeping track and doing the other 3 buildings, making sure that the tenants are paying and everything's kept up there. But that first building that's all vacant, that's my baby right now. So hopefully here in the next few months, it'll be done and I'll be able to roll on to the next one.
Cool. And do you mind just sort of giving me a brief breakdown of sort of what your standard remodel looks like?
Yeah, so standard remodel. So this one's a little different. We're pulling the bathtubs out. We're gutting everything except the drywall, electrical, and HVAC. Plumbing's all copper. We're keeping that. So we're putting in all new kitchens, new appliances, new bathtubs, all new flooring, LVT, 2-tone paint color, nice bright white trim, new windows, new doors, new lock system. So it'll be a big project, but I should be able to bump rents by probably $300 to $350 a month per unit.
Wow, that's great. And real quick, just on the property itself, the 12 units, is it 3 stories?
Yeah, well, it's 2.5. Yeah, the first one's half underground, okay. So it's
gotcha. Okay, great, cool. And then any exterior CapEx?
Windows, roof, all new roofs, and then probably siding next year or the year after. Siding's in decent shape, but there's a lot of it that's just broke or hail damage that we'll eventually fix. And then obviously landscaping, cutting trees, putting sod or seed down and all that.
So, okay, so let's sort of just summarize this then. Distressed seller, 48 units, 4 buildings, 12 units apiece. Spent about 2 to 3 months working with this seller and the broker to eventually get it under contract. Didn't have a T12, didn't have records. You had to dive into the whole deal, going as far as talking to tenants to figure out what they were actually paying. You reach out to a local bank, someone that you didn't have a pre-existing relationship with, and pitch the deal to them. They like it. They take your 22 unit, collateralize that, basically take over that building. And basically they used about $800,000 collateral in that as your down payment for the 2.5 purchase price, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And then
so they're in a position where if, I fail to pay on one, they'll take 2 buildings for the price of one, which makes them in a better position than I am, which gives them more confidence to lend to me. So hopefully in the 12 months, so in a year from now, I should be done with that 48. I'll refinance that and then untie the 2 mortgages, and they'll be on their own. So that way, if something does hit the fan, the whole process won't come tumbling down.
Yeah, and I'm curious about the rehab costs. So did they finance that as well? Is that part of the deal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And
I'm getting an appraisal on it, and then my ARV, they'll just take 80% of that, give me the cash out. I'll pull it out as I need, so I'm not paying interest on that. And then once I'm completely done, I'll refinance it, or I'll have another appraisal done. If it's over the 12-month mark, whatever that comes back at, I'll just keep that equity on the books and roll it over to the next project.
that's great. And how much CapEx do you think you're going to put into it when it's all said and done?
I planned for 700, but I'm hoping I only put in about 500.
Gotcha. Okay. And you told me this before we got started, but what you, well, I don't know if you want to talk about that right now, but what you think that appraisal is going to come in at?
I'm hoping between 4.1 and 4.2. So I bought it for 2.5. I put 500 into it. I'll be sitting at 3 million, and hopefully I'll have 1 million, 1 million, 2 worth of equity in that place, which I'll be able to just roll that over into the next project.
And when did you actually acquire this one?
Was it August of this year?
Okay.
End of August of 2019.
Okay. And when do you think you'll be all done and fully refinanced out?
I'm hoping by the end of 2020, by November or December of next year. I'm giving it 3 months per building. So,
man, so you're talking, give or take 18 months, and you're going to be able to turn this deal into really, technically no out of cash or out of pocket cash, and turn it into potentially over $1 million.
Yeah, that's my plan. Is I'm hoping it all works. All on paper, it looks good. I have a lot of confidence in it. The numbers don't lie, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Man, that's exciting. Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, man. Well, is there anything else I should have asked you on this deal? Or let me ask you this. Was there any particular challenges that have come up in the process that were unexpected, or something that you hadn't faced in the past?
I would say the biggest thing is just getting the numbers from the seller. I've never dealt with a seller that didn't even know their own numbers. They just kind of winged it and threw money in the bank and hoped it paid the bills. And they had no idea what they were sitting on. They had no idea what their income was, their expenses were. They just knew it was paying the bills and getting them by day to day. So it was hard to just put my faith in something without, black and white of T12 or anything like that.
I'm sure it made the underwriting process a lot more difficult, and probably extended it out quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Matt, you have a great story, and I've really enjoyed talking with you. I love just sort of your down-to-earth approach to this, how you've tackled it. I mean, we've had a lot of guests on the show. Very few of them are the sole owners of their entire portfolio, especially at the size of yours. And so I think that's really cool. I love how you've sort of built your business around the BRRRR method and collateralizing previous acquired assets that you really built in a lot of forced appreciation into, and just rolled it into the next one. And it's exciting to see a guy that spent some time in the military be able to come out and really make some cool things happen for himself and his family. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, before we wind down, I got 3 final questions for you. You ready? I want a knee-jerk gut reaction to them.
All right, shoot.
All right. What's the biggest mistake that you've made on your apartment investing journey so far that we can all learn from?
Doing it all myself. Build a team, hire things out, get third-party property manager. Don't try and find all the deals on your own. Don't try to swing the hammer all by yourself. Get people in there to help you out, because you'll be working 90-hour weeks and pulling your hair out. You can grow so much bigger if you're just, you source a lot of things out and build a good team.
And that doesn't necessarily mean giving up equity, though, in your situation.
Correct.
Yeah. You've been able to build team and make it happen more recently without giving up equity. And I think that's pretty cool. All right. What's the biggest win you've had on your apartment investing journey so far?
networking, meeting people, going out there and meeting brokers, meeting bankers, meeting contractors, just getting my name out there, getting business cards, doing reference checks on people. That's probably the biggest asset right there, is just like getting a good team, getting out there and networking with everybody.
What would you say is your best method for making great connections right now?
Probably either local real estate meetups or like bigger pockets or local Facebook groups. There's a lot of people out there just wanting answers to just simple questions, and it's hard for them to find out. So just answering questions and going to meetups and meet people face to face.
So what would you say to someone who's saying, well, why would I go to a local meetup? That's more of my competition. Those are the guys that are looking for the same deals as me. What would you say to someone who has that mentality?
It's not a cutthroat business. And if it is, those people that are wanting to cut your throat are usually the guys that aren't going to last very long. So, I mean, go out there. There's people from every aspect of investing. People that strictly do Airbnb, strictly do wholesaling or single family homes. There's a ton of people out there, maybe not just in your niche, but that can provide value to you. And, maybe they'll know a realtor that knows exactly what you want, or maybe they'll even know a pocket listing that you're looking for. So it's not cutthroat kind of, shark infested water where you're too scared to go in, where they're just going to steal deals from you. Usually those guys that are like that, they don't last in the game, and they kind of just weed themselves out eventually.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Last question for you. What's the best advice you have for someone who's just starting their apartment investing journey?
Don't take investment advice from somebody who doesn't own any real estate. I've heard so many people say, oh, don't get into real estate. You don't want to deal with tenants and toilets and all that crap. And then you ask them, well, how many rentals do you have? Well, I don't have any, but I had an uncle that had one time, and he hated it. I mean, go out there and ask, find a mentor, ask them what they think about it. And people that have been in the game for a while, they'll tell you the truth. There's nothing to hide. You can find most of it online anyways. And that's where the local meetups help, is go there and get face to face with people and start talking to them about it. And yeah, that's best advice I can give, I think.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Well, again, thank you for taking the time. We've gone over a little bit here, but I thought your story was great. I really enjoyed our conversation, and wish you the best of luck in your future investing endeavors, and hope to connect with you again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.